All right, guys, we've got the first Sunday scan of August. It's finally here. Last week was one for the record books. It was a big one. SIGA that we had been stalking every single day, making sure that I did not step in front with size, making sure that I did not fight it, making sure that I did not get in a position in which I would end up exhausted and end up missing the opportunity of quite possibly the year, had I not covered half maybe. But big opportunity. Compared it exactly to AMC. Literally the same breakout, the same setup. Did not think that it was going to be the next AMC at all. However, I knew not to step in front of it because of the hard lessons that I learned on AMC. Same situation, same slow and steady grind higher that's going to keep you short, keep you adding, and then blow you out when it's almost time to crack. But unfortunately, you're going to be so exhausted that you just don't go back to it. You say, you know what, I'm done with it. I didn't behave. I lost too much. I'm not going to bother. And then it happens. So fortunately for us, for me, you guys saw me in the room all week, broken record. There's certain levels that needed to confirm, certain levels that needed to fail, and they didn't. They never confirmed until we finally had the very first day where every retest of VWAP failed, every key level failed, every time that it needed to come back into an exhaustion zone that we talked about, basically a channel of kind of letting it kind of do its thing before it stays heavy and fails down. Those all held. Those all did exactly what you needed to see. We walked right through it in the room. And, one of the interviews that we put out this week with Anthony and Sam, he asked him a question about luck. And, he kind of answered with, the old saying that, when preparation meets opportunity, and, are you really lucky, or are you just doing what you're supposed to be doing? And then when it all aligns, came together like it did on SIGA. And so we got a headline. Basically, FDA was saying, it's not really, I don't even know what it was. It's not really like proof that it's going to really do anything at all. Meanwhile, they probably were forced almost to come out here and say something about it. But, the stock's been on a tear. And, everybody's excited. Everybody's calling it next mRNA. And then all of a sudden, we had SSR on. So no one could hit the bid. No one could get short. And, it gave a couple opportunities after it circuited down. And it came back up a little bit and slammed again. But it was awesome. And got a huge piece of it. I was at the point where like 5 minutes before, I'm like, oh man, this thing is so tough to let work because it just continually wants to come back and retest prior levels. And when you're sized, it's a big swing. And there was 3 big swings in it. And I did a good job early of covering half because it actually rallied back $1. And then I was able to put some back on. And I probably had about 60 to 65% of my position, almost 70% into the circuit down, which was amazing. And quite honestly, if it did not circuit down, did not do that, there's no way that I would have been that patient throughout the day to get, that amount of dollars per share, essentially, right? Because it was very hard to screw up if you were short, because it immediately went down to another 2, and I think another 2. I think it was a $9 fade from the short at the 2180s range that we went over on the broadcast. I talked about why. I went through that it was finally heavy versus VWAP, mentioned it many times pre-market, and said why I was being patient with that name. I didn't want to screw up my average and size too much too soon because, just like I said, the amount of times that it came back, it's aggressive. And when you have size, it's not a small move. It's not a small P&L move. And it takes a toll on you. It really, really does. and I was about 5 minutes from being frustrated that I didn't cover it all into that dollar pullback before it rallied the dollar. And then, like I said, it was 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes later and just gone. And it was phenomenal. So I hope that a lot of you guys participated in it. It was an A+ opportunity. A lot of tweets replied, why was it an A+ opportunity? The good part is anybody that watches Sunday Scan knows why. We go over the same setup over and over and over again. And this is proof that if you play by the rules, if you continue to do the same thing over and over, as long as it works, at some point, you're going to have that outlier opportunity. And at some point, it's going to be something like SIGA. So it was a really nice way to end Friday. And like I was saying, as far as luck, that was the first Friday that I haven't taken off this summer for the most part at 11 a.m. Usually I've been trying to get out of there by 11 or 12. And I don't know if it's just because I didn't have plans or if subconsciously I was like, I got to stay because SIGA, I don't really know. But I was there, I didn't leave, and it was a home run. So I hope that you guys all got a good piece of it. I know a lot of people covered, too early on some, but you know what? You got to keep doing that over and over, and eventually you will get one. It was the same thing with some of these unwind trades that we talk about, the liquidation trades. I had a member that, always PMs me and, frustrated that he's always covering early. It's still a good trade, but it's not that outlier huge move. And then he kept doing the same thing over and over. And on the 8th, 9th, 10th one, whatever, he captured the entire thing. And it was, something where his account rose by literally 50%. And then from that point forward, he's been a changed trader and continually doing the same thing. So, point here is that, stop chasing to try to get that. Stop trying to force the trade. Just keep doing what works. A high probability setup, something that you're familiar with. You guys know what my A+ setup is. We talked about it on Riot and Mara back with Bitcoin going crazy. When those set up, we talked about it on Tesla. When that set up, we talked about it. Apple when it was straight up for, very bunch of months ago. We talked about it on AMC the last couple weeks. So you should understand what my A+ setup is at this point. And one other note is what you notice is I didn't care about HKD. Everybody else wanted me to care. Everybody else was asking me what I thought about it. Everybody else wanted to play it, wanted to figure it out. But ask yourself, what's the edge? And how can you have conviction that that trade is going to do what you think when there's $5, $10, $18 spreads, there's no liquidity, and it could go in a circuit halt either direction at any moment? There's market risk, and then there's a ridiculous risk. And on top of that, you have the potential of a circuit halt, or not, excuse me, a regulatory halt. Because who knows? Who knows if this is some sort of failure to deliver, the complete system has broke and, the regulators decide to step in, right? We don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on. And that's on you to decide whether or not you want that risk. And for me, I'm all set. I focus on liquidity. I focus on high probability setups because this is what I do each and every single day. I don't care about, I made a bunch of money on this stock once and then that was it. That was the peak of my career. And, I'm no longer trading, back to a 9 to 5, right? That's what a lot of AMC and GME type traders are. They thought they were going to be a professional trader and now they're gone, right? And so just be aware of that. Same thing with Bitcoin, right? The price action kind of makes you think you know what you're doing until reality hits. And then you have to make the tough decision of, was this all just a hobby, a gamble, or am I willing and do I know how to actually trade? And if I do want to actually trade, do I actually have a process that is going to, benefit me over the long term? And if not, then that's where you need to start. You have to be able to identify, what works with your personality. And just because you guys can memorize and know and see every single week what my A+ setups are, does not mean that it's going to fit your personality and it's going to work for you. It's what works for me based on my career, based on fine tuning and focused, on what I'm best at. And you know what? Other people might be best at taking a long trade, swinging it, and letting it work. Other people might be best at swinging a short over time. I did that this week on RDBX. And you know what? I was up at 4 a.m. both days. I had size short on RDBX at 650s, added, and 2 nights in a row, I wake up at 3:45 a.m., eyes open, and obviously I can't fall back asleep until 4 just to kind of see, all right, does it open a big gap or does it gap down? And then obviously, okay, it's gapping down, great, I'm gonna go back to bed, get maybe 15 minutes, wake back up, eyes open, oh man, is it up or down? And just really, really poor sleep those 2 nights. That does not fit my personality. I hadn't done that since maybe AMC days, right? When I was working 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., which I have no regrets. It changed my life forever, that, particular time as a trader. And there's no regrets with that. But what I learned from it is I don't want that life. I don't want the 4 a.m. wake ups. And so RDBX was a good reminder, although it was a fantastic trade and it closed at 430s, I think, on Friday. And like I had tweeted out, I think that it's going to continue to fail into maybe that August vote. And, we'll figure out, what happens from there. But I know what works for my personality and I know what doesn't. So occasionally I might take that trade if the writing's on the wall, if the probability is so high that it's, why would I not take that opportunity? But personally, I don't like it. I don't like that style. And therefore, it's not something that I am continually on the prowl for, on the search for, because it just does not fit my personality and what I'm looking to get out of this career. Couple other things. I wanted to mention one member. I posted this tweet Saturday asking when your day ends. Does it end at 4 p.m. or does it start? And, I check every now and then. I don't check every single chart. I don't have time to go through and give feedback on every single one. But the best part about it is it keeps this member accountable. They're going through the charts. They're going through the trades that they made. And they're able to put their finger on whether or not they actually had a setup. Are you going to put this in this breakout setup? Are you going to put this in this short particular setup? And if you find that you can't really place this trade in a particular category, then you start to realize when you're just trading to trade and where you perform the best. What you want to do is keep riding, performing the best wherever you're at with that. I just did an interview with Kim, which comes out in I think a week and a half. We did a Twitter space. She asked a bunch of fantastic questions, and we talked about focusing on winners and how can you make those winners better? And it's something that I've spent a lot of time working on. And we all know why we lost. A lot of people say, oh, you learn so much from your losers and you need to focus on your losers, focus on what not to do. When I lose, I know what I did wrong right away. And it's always, I was either stubborn, I didn't stick to my stop, I scaled into a loser, whatever the case may be. It's always the same things. So I just need to work on avoiding that. But how do you take it up to the next level? Look at your winners. What could you have done better? How could you have scaled better? How could you have sized up for this major opportunity with a lot less risk? Why are we always sizing up the most when we're down the most? That's when we have the most risk. Why not size up correctly when we're right the most and let it keep on going? And when it speeds up, now you've got a whole bunch more. Then you can lock in and go back to your normal core. I focus on the winning trades for that reason. How can I fine tune those and make those better? I know what I do wrong on my losers. I know where I should have stopped out. I know what I did wrong. I don't need to dwell on that and be negative. I want to focus on where I can make my positives more positive, better, greater. So think about that. It's just a different frame of mind. I'm not saying losers don't matter. I'm saying focus on what you do best and try to get better and better and better. You know what you do wrong. You know what you did wrong. But it's up to you to try to avoid that. And you know when you do turn it into a loser, you know when you do overstay where you should have got out. You already know all of that. You don't need to do the work on it. You just have to stop it. You have to stop fighting. You have to stop disobeying what your trade thesis was. Couple other things. Sam's video. Turbo in the room. Awesome dude. Huge rugby player. I would not screw with him. Big dude. Awesome guy. Always helpful in the room. And just really gave a great interview. I mean, just it will sync with all kinds of traders. We're trying to interview everybody. Some of the greats, some potentially new traders, and other people that have found success through trading, came from different places. And my goal with these is to kind of give you all these different kind of ways, and you just take a little bit out of each one to make you better. That's what I do. When I watch interviews, something sticks, then I apply it to my own trading. And Sam's a great example of that. Like I said, super solid dude, has been through it, made some, lost some, and has found consistency in what works for him. And he's sharing it. And he's sharing, the no BS approach to, how he got there and what he looks for. Then, a couple other things. Just be aware this week, everybody's calling for the next HKD, right? Everybody's got the next SPAC with 300,000 volume or the next IPO with 1.5 million float. Yes, they all potentially will rip, but just be cautious trying to hold because you think it's going to go to 450. More often than not, it will not. And you'll end up with the bag. That said, if you're a short seller, be aware that you might want to put the brakes on. Be aware that it might do one more shove and then one more shove. We are in a high FOMO market right now, and you need to be aware. Let's see. Last couple notes. One was the VRAX warning and liquidity play. So we had another big liquidation play, and that was VRAX on Friday. And just like I said, actually two comments here. Last Sunday, we talked about how one of my greatest fears was everybody oversizing on every single IPO, thinking that they're all going to be liquidation plays. And at some point, in my opinion, it was going to catch up. HKD finally caught up. And shorts that just shorted because it didn't make sense, held short even though they knew that they should not be short, started a perpetual squeeze. Whether the same people are short from day one as they are now, probably not. But what's happening is it's going. Shorts are letting out prior shorts, which are letting out new shorts, which are letting out the next shorts, and so on and so forth, and it just continually goes. But that said, don't even watch it. It's not worth it. What's the point? The last point that I just saw that I wanted to remind you, something like SIGA, S-I-G-A. That single trade, just like my friend with some of these liquidity trades, getting frustrated that, I'm doing the same thing. It hasn't happened yet. Then it finally did. All you need is that one trade, and it will change the trajectory of your career for good, potentially, right? So once you get that huge buffer, that huge trade, you stop always trying to force and you start to come prepared and wait for the trades to come to you rather than forcing the trades. When I trade my best, I trade the least. Okay, so I always get into a bunch of different positions, but I only focus on two, as you guys know. But When I am trading my best, I am patient. I don't need to be the first prince. I don't need to find the top. I don't need to do this or that. Wait. Just wait. Just like you saw GOVX, TBLT, Sega, so on and so forth. Just wait and be patient. Whenever we lose, we always think we got to be back at the desk, stay longer hours, trade more. But when you're trading your best, how do you get prepared? How do you perform? What do you do? And that's what you should use as, your everyday routine. All right, guys, so for the second part of Scan, as always, I'm not a financial advisor. These are not buy or sell recommendations, and this is for educational and informational purposes only. The goal here is to kind of get you in the mindset of, to me, what makes it a good trade. And so that when you see it start to unfold, you can actually make that decision on your own and whether or not it actually fits your own personality. And just like I said before, my A pluses don't need to be your A pluses, but you as a trader need to figure out what you're best at and, focus on that and excel at that and fine tune that particular trade setup, because that's what's going to become your system that you trade over and over and over again. Before I forget, as always, if you guys leave a like and a key takeaway, put the timestamp, leave a key takeaway, and if you'd like, feel free to ask a question in the comment section. I'm going to pick a few, and I will go over them next week's video. This week's Zarlos94, Tedro Garcia, and Kevin Gilroy. You guys have got the t-shirts for this week. If you're Canadian, we'll still ship them, but it's been difficult since COVID. I guess some of them come back, some of them don't. Other ones take like 30 days now. So it's unfortunate, but, just a heads up. All right, let's get right into Scan. So, obviously Sega is going to be on watch, and Sega means that GOVX is going to be on watch and TNXP. More so just GOVX. But one of the biggest things that I want to be aware of is don't just go back to the well because it paid well yesterday. That's when you get into a lot of trouble, and yesterday, I mean, obviously Friday. In the past, sometimes you make a big trade and you go right back at it and think that it's going to be just as, not necessarily easy. Definitely wasn't easy, but you think it's going to be as straightforward as the day before. But remember, it was an A+ setup that day. That's why you sized in. That's why you scaled and were patient and let the trade work, because it was set up, incoming into that A+, monster opportunity. No different than Riot that we went over, no different than Mara back in the day. All of these different trades. Same thing with AMC. But the next day, it's no longer that A+ setup. There's still opportunity for 2 or 3 days surrounding that move, but it's not the A+ setup. So it will not be as forgiving and it will not be as aggressive when the bid comes out. Be aware of that. So for me, ideally $1 to $2 upside, and then it starts to taper off. I would love to see it. I think New York City issued something, health emergency, or I forget the headline, but maybe that adds to the gap. But either way, I'd love to see it 1920s again and then start to taper off back towards 17, 16 or something like that. We'll see what happens. TBLT, this one is very similar to CYN. If you guys remember CYN, that was a monster trade and trade opportunity. But this one I actually had fumbled quite a bit because it had a huge run, and then they raised, and I was up huge, and they ended up coming all the way back. I had only covered some of it, and it just kept on coming back up, and I minimized the entire trade. It pretty much went back to my entry, but it was a situation like, I was just up a lot, and I thought I was doing the right thing by being patient. And anyway, TBLT reminded me of that exact same situation, and the filings are quite similar. And I was reading some tweets about it by somebody that is very knowledgeable with filings, and I remember reading the same exact kind of situation on CYN. And I was like, why is this thing not staying heavy? And, I try to look for similarities. And so I found one on that. And so the key is just don't forget about it and let it do its process. Let it get everybody out that's been shorting that, it's a no-brainer, obvious short, but then it held and they oversized. So now they're getting worked out. And, let that process happen, and then comes your edge. Just like, I'll give you a couple examples with this, kind of unwind process. We've got CLNN, not as big of a move, but, same kind of situation where you've got all this volume, everybody wants it, then everybody's exhausted, and then the move comes. EVLT is starting to get to the exhaustion point, maybe under 750s, right? And then even something like RDBX, how many people tried like crazy the first day, the second day, the third day, and then said to hell with it the next couple of days, and then you get the $2 fade. So really the key is stop forcing the trade to happen on your timetable. Let it do its thing, and let it exhaust everybody out. You saw, if you were in the room on Friday, I started to position on the short side. I wanted to use 840s as my level. You can see why. Just draw a line there. And 820s as the confirmation. And I'm just going to put them roughly in those spots. And then, as you saw, it flushed out, came back, attempted to retest that 820s, and then never looked back. So fantastic opportunity. Ideally, comes back in 750s, exhausts out 720s, fades towards 670s, 660s. See what happens. GOVX. This one is crowded, real crowded. I talked about it into the close the other day, like just how heavy it was. One of the days that I took on, I think it was Tuesday, super heavy into the close, and then Thursday, super heavy into the close. But I think one of the best key takeaways that you maybe can take besides the first part of this, of the scan, is SIGA is DWAC. GOVX is fun, PHUN. TNXP is mark, right? So if SIGA, I don't think it will, but if SIGA were to go 25, 30, 35, these would have no choice but to gap up and just go nuts, right? TNXP as well. If you guys remember DWAC went nuts, faded off, Fun started to fade off, Mark started to fade off, and then what happened? DWAC gapped up and it went crazy. So the most obvious trade on GOVX is short. They're going to raise any day. They probably wait until after earnings, but everybody already knows that. Everybody's already positioned for it. Everybody's betting on it going down. Same deal with TNXP, etc. SIGA continued to go, so these continued to stay strong. SIGA tank, this one pulled back. SIGA tank 30%, this one was still up 30%. So point here is that understand themes and sectors, and we talk a lot about that, never underestimating. When oil goes nuts, don't underestimate IMPP and HUSA and all those ones. Same situation as DWAC. DWAC is SIGA, GOVX is fun. And fun went nuts and then completely unwound. As soon as everybody stopped trying to find the top, because everybody's already sized, everybody's already betting hard on this thing. And if we open up higher on SIGA, this thing will too. You can see how it acted, and everybody is looking to cover when they can. As soon as it slams, if it stops going down, it's going to go back up because it's so crowded. Be aware of that. I still think we're going to have a great trade. It's been cheap. It's been liquid. You can trade whatever size you want within reason. Obviously, I'm not recommending that, but for me, it's very liquid. I can trade, what I see fit, and I don't really have to worry about liquidity being an issue. Next two watches for me, main watches, AMC, daily driver. Big note is it has not participated with the market, so be aware of that. See that. And when the market starts to go down, I think we could have that next downside pressure, down to 12 or something like that. But then again, every time I think AMC is going to pull back, it always goes up. Except the 18 to 14 trade that was phenomenal, which was an A+ setup, which was the same setup as SIGA. Now, Mara. Mara, so far, Bitcoin has come in. You can see, down here on the back screen here, went basically 24.6 to 23.7s on Bitcoin. So we might gap down on Mara, we might gap down on Riot. Watch those. They've been having trouble at this breakout level, as has Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin fades back to 20, obviously these are going to come right back in. Don't take these off radar. I think they're going to be very profitable if Bitcoin can't get it together. Failed follow through setups. SNTI, we went over this one. I felt like, there's just been so many in a row of everybody getting paid out to hold into the open. So my thought was, I was thinking it's going to probably round trip. I was thinking that SNTI would round trip on people that have been trained to hold into open. And as you saw, we pretty much came into the lows into 10 a.m. And there was no 9:30 a.m. Squeeze out. There was no ridiculous move because it literally round tripped right back to where it started earlier in the day. You can see that right over here. So that was the first one. There was BWV and then there was BTTX, and everybody got paid out. Everybody got rewarded for holding into the open, and this one was the first one that it round tripped right into the open and went straight down. That said, I posted my chart for in the lounge on Friday. You could see, so we had this little bit of a warning shot last Sunday, every Sunday really. We talk about how the 2020 market is a little bit different, right? Where everybody's doing the same thing, and if it stops making lows by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., if it's not continuing to stay heavy, starts to base, be aware. And so you saw that this was basing, and you saw all my covers, and then it started to rip. I got another one off, came all the way down, and unfortunately I was the low here. I got filled a decent chunk, but not enough. Got another good piece, and again I was the low here. So it's super, super thin, but it was really paper thin, because as soon as it came to my bid, as long as a market sell, I filled, but other than that, that was the only sellers. It popped right back up. So that said, you can see firsthand here how it did not make new lows, 10, 11 a.m. plus. It started to trend up. People stayed short. They did not take the hint, and then they got blown out into the close, and they walked, right? They walked. So point here is, this is a perfect example of what we talk about, where, too many shorts are coming in doing the same thing. It stops going down. Some get out. Others fight it, get squeezed out. Typically, I'd be looking for this the next day, gap down and unwind. If you were short today, you were probably thinking, or Friday, you were probably thinking 220s, 210s, flush down to, 180s. So if that's the thought, then you should be hopeful for a 250, 260 open or 240s, flush down to 180s. So just because it gaps down on Monday does not mean that it comes off radar. So keep that in mind. A lot of hidden gems are from gap downs, ones that people forget about. RDBX, same thoughts. So far, so good. No more position for me for the reasons that I went over earlier. But I would love to see, some more pops. And then I want to just be aware into August 9th, into the vote. Maybe 7th or 8th, you might see it actually bounce. Just one last hurrah before they either approve or don't. If they don't, maybe it goes up and squeezes. If they do, I think the deal price was like 70 cents or something, so that's not exactly good. Other than that, Vrax, fantastic morning in the room. Even if you didn't have the borrows, even if you didn't short it, doesn't matter. The best part is not to long it. And, I gave that warning in the room, and I said, whatever you do, do not long this stock. And, it's super avoidable. It's crazy. I don't mind that there's this many opportunities and this many big trades, but it's crazy that they have been able to do it so many times. But this is an exact example of the conversation we had last week, where you can do the same thing over and over again, but if you keep on getting more aggressive and sizing more, at some point it's going to test your limit. So a lot of people probably got bent up and covered, and then they missed out on this whole unwind. Let it do its thing. Let it do the gut check. It did do a gut check. And then, after the gut check, you had, how long? You had from 10:46 to basically almost an hour of no liquidation. It was not staying heavy. So then everybody that just ignored this price action got popped, and then came the actual trade and the unwind, and the bids were pulled. And this is exactly what I was talking about last week. You know, for me, I'm always consistent. I don't want to go super, super aggressive. You know, I obviously when it works perfect, I'm frustrated that, you know, I could have gone more, but on times that it needs the extra breathing room, I'm happy that I didn't. Other than that, CMRA, 380s continues to be the level. I'll be watching that. Same thesis, same thought process as RDBX and CLNN and EVTL. We already went over that. PGY, very nice one. Great opportunity the last couple days. And even better, avoid into the close. It was Friday. It started to ramp up. Everybody started to watch in the room for a potential fade. And I was like, hands off. Like, forget about it. Let it do its thing. Let it fail first. And then think about it. And it didn't fail. And either way, fantastic opportunities off the open. And, you know, you guys saw the covers in this range. It would have been nice to get some long action as well. But I do think this gaps down, maybe under this 22 level, and then fades back. And I would be interested if so. If it gaps up, probably not. EVTL we went over, so that should be pretty straightforward. 750 level, obviously the key there. Next up, last couple, continuation scan. IFRX, I don't obviously like it buying at this level. I've sold the majority of it. I have about probably a 10% position left. That was the long idea this week, this day, and it went straight up. I did not expect it to move that much that fast. I sold some Thursday, sold some Friday, and then just riding out a small portion. So if it consolidates and starts to build over 250s, I'd consider re-adding some, but not at the moment. APLD has a liquidity trap setup, but that does not mean that it needs to go, and you also need to know what it is. If Bitcoin gaps down, this shouldn't be running. If it is, and it's showing strength, then, you know, maybe you have a potential breakout, but you shouldn't assume that it's going to go. You should never assume that a liquidity trap is going to go. You need it to prove itself. But keep an eye on that, but definitely a nice little setup with the wicks that we talk about. Last two, ARDS. Notable, only 3 million shares. A lot of people will start to stock this for a short, and then it'll come in and potentially consolidate 220s. I'm going to watch it then, because that's when you start to see maybe that next move towards 350, because at the end of the day, the volume's not that big, and it came up real fast. BTTX is pretty much the same market that we're in right now. History, like it's got a history of the same market that we're in right now. What I mean by that is you see a lot of IPOs going nuts right now. You see a lot of SPACs going nuts right now. All thin SPACs. Everybody's chasing them, thinking they have the next HKD. HKD brings out the worst in people. They will all be chasing, thinking they're in the next, or they have a piece of the next HKD. BTTX, this is when DWAC happened. And everybody thought that they had the next DWAC. So it went nuts. It went up to like $55 or, no, I guess 20. I thought it went a little bit higher. Maybe it was pre-market. And then completely came apart and unwound. And so anyway, with that said, you had like BCAC going. This was like a Discord pump. And, you know, obviously smoked people. And then you also have MGAM, which was another one. This actually ended up being a really nice short late day. Always the first move is the easiest for me. After that, I let it consolidate. There's no edge. You get chopped. You give it back. So, you know, as I wrote in the room, it was an avoid after that first 1150 to 850 trade. But BTTX, definitely a liquidity kind of situation potentially if it holds. We've got 45 million shares this day and 3.6 that day. So if we start to base 230s, 240s, keep an eye. If it starts to build over 250s, then you might have a breakout. But be aware, be cautious, be safe. We'll see you in the room tomorrow, and have a good rest of the weekend.